Good evening and welcome along to the NUFC Takeover talk show and a very special guest tonight. I've got my good friend Malcolm MacDonald, better known to Newcastle fans as Supermac. Good evening, Mal.
Good evening, Steve.
Great.
Lovely to talk to you.
Great to speak
And
to
be
you.
able to see you at the same time. We haven't done that for a while.
It's something which, to be honest, Mal, we take for granted because, for the last few years, 9 months of the year, we virtually see each other every week or every other week doing the pre-match at places like the Dog and Parrot, and other venues that we've worked at. Fantastic to see you, Mal. How are you keeping? Because obviously you come into the age category where you had to basically isolate straight away.
That's right. Yeah, I turned 70 back in January. Plus, I've got COPD. And so both counted against me, and I was supposed to be on total lockdown and isolate in the home for the 12 weeks. The problem with that was that that on the Thursday before the lockdown was announced, my wife had an operation. She had a total knee replacement, and it developed a problem the following day, and so she was put into a splint, which she had to wear for a whole month, and that meant that she was literally bedbound with it, and so everything was down to me. I had to do, I had to shoot out and do shopping, and fortunately I was able to get out early in the morning and just get there when there were very, very few people about. So we've sort of got through so far, and we're all in reasonable health, I think.
Well, I'm glad you're fitting well, Mal. You look great. So we'll crack on. The way that this works, Malcolm, is we'll get questions from the fans. It's their show. I'll ask you the questions, you give us the answers, and we'll crack on. Paul Oxley says, Malcolm, if you could play with any player from the past or present, who would it be and why?
Blimey. It's not an easy question to answer because I've played with and I've played against so many great players. From my era, when I'm asked the question, who was the best player that you ever played with? I have to say it was Liam Brady at Arsenal. And he was just a youngster at the time. He was amazing. We could give him the ball on the edge of our box, and then we could all just saunter up field, congregate on the edge of the opposing penalty area, and Liam would sooner or later arrive, and he never failed to do so, and would knock a stunning ball into the box. He was quite amazing. Wonderful player, lovely guy as well. I would have been fascinated, I think, to be in the same side as George Best, who I think is the best player that I've ever played against. His skills were quite incredible. He wasn't 8 stone soaking wet, and yet I saw him take some vicious stuff from defenders, and it never put him off. And he never lost his stride. And the strange thing about Bestie was that without the ball, he was a bit of a plodder. He didn't run very fast, but you put a ball at his feet, and all of a sudden he was like lightning, grease lightning. And I remember one time playing against Manchester United at St James Park, and the ball came out of the Man United area. Bestie was in the D, and he controlled it and turned, and I was literally 2 yards away, and I went with him. Now I was just about the quickest player in the Football League at the time, and Bestie just set off with the ball at his feet, and I couldn't catch him. Really couldn't catch him. I could stick with him, but I couldn't catch him. I couldn't make ground on him, and I was sort of made just a little bit, and I elbowed him. I barged him. I booted him a few times. Couldn't knock him off his stride. He was quite incredible, and it finished up just outside the penalty area of the home side, and he struck a shot, and fortunately, thank heavens, it hit the bar and went over for a goal kick. But if it had gone in the net, I would have looked a right Charlie. I chased him for literally 70 yards and couldn't do anything at all to stop him. Who else? I have to mention one guy who I thought was one of the best defenders ever around, and he was a North East lad, Colin Todd. He started off at Sunderland, and he was an absolutely magnificent defender and so quick. He almost matched me for pace, and he read things beautifully. And the best partnership that I've seen in any defence is Colin Todd and Roy McFarland at Derby. They were incredible together.
Some great players there, Mal, straight away. We'll move on to the next question.
Well, I was going to say that there was a mention of the present, wasn't there, as well?
Yeah. Anybody who you would play with in the present? Anybody in the present?
I think I watched the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and they are so incredible on the ball, and they're just a joy to watch. And so, great players. I played against Eusebio back in the 70s, and he was very much like Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, you never knew which way he was going to go. Great players. But they're trying to make that kind of decision as to who's better than who. When over the decades that I've been involved in football, there are just so very many great players. Very difficult to make a decision. And also, how do you compare a defender with a forward, a midfield player with a goalkeeper? You can't do it. You know, I could mention a lot of the time people say that Gordon Banks was the best ever goalkeeper. Gordon, lovely fella, wonderful man, and a great goalkeeper. But for me, Peter Shilton was the best of the lot, and he worked so hard at it. He really did. He worked his socks off. And in the England squad at the time, there was Peter Shilton and Ray Clements. And Alf Ramsey, he found it so difficult to make a choice that he used to alternate them. If he hadn't have alternated, then Peter Shilton may well have got sort of like 160, 170 caps instead of the 125 that he got. But Ray Clements, he just did what was necessary in training and left the training ground. Peter Shilton, at the end of training, he would work for 2 solid hours on all sorts of the different parts of a goalkeeper's skills, and I used to enjoy it because I used to do the shooting at him all the while, and so it was good practice for me. But for me, Peter Shilton, he was the best goalkeeper I've ever seen.
Great stuff. Lee Ellison says, Malcolm, did you ever play with Ray Ellison? And if you did, was he any good?
Well, Ray, I see Ray every now and again, bless him. And he's such a lovely lad. He really is. A big mate of Jinky Smith. And yes, I do see him. There's quite a number of occasions each year that ex-players get together, and Ray is always there, always there. And he now the question, was he any good? I find it a very difficult question to answer for the very simple reason that Ray, bless him, he probably only played 2 or 3 times in the 5 years that I was at Newcastle. So I didn't really see him enough to gauge, and you can't make a decision on training. You have to see them playing games. So was he any good? He was a good journeyman in the game, I think. I think that's how I'd describe him.
Great stuff. James White, I think he's going to make you feel old, Malcolm. He says, you were my granddad's hero, and he was at your debut game when you scored a hat-trick against Liverpool. That's very nice, James.
Lovely. There are 3 very specific ages to being a professional footballer. The first one is a young lad will come with his autograph book and say, can I have your autograph, please? The next stage is when you're a bit older and the kids come up and they say, can I have your autograph for my dad, please? And I'm now at the stage where they say, can I have your autograph for my granddad, please? And I hope I don't reach the next stage. Yeah, so it does, you know, that I see puzzlement on the faces of young kids when they're with their dads or their granddads, and the granddad or the father spots me and goes, oh, there's Malcolm McDonald, and the kid sort of just looks totally bemused, you know, like, who the hell's he? And it just goes to show you, you know, that one generation will know you so well, and the next generation who never saw you play just have no inkling as to who you are. And I'm sure that after something like that, then dad or granddad will take the kid back home and put YouTube on and say, right, there he is, look, and get all the old footage up.
Yeah. Roy Williams is on, and he says, hi, Malcolm. Can you remember way back when a few of us used to play truant from school and play football in Bishop's Park?
And this is from Roy Williams, my word. Now, I was born in Fulham in West London, and I lived in the street that led up from the main road to Fulham Football Club, and between Putney Bridge and Fulham Football Ground, running along the side of the Thames, was Bishop's Park. And we in the summer holidays, or any of the holidays, we would all gather in there to play, and I would get there early, and it would start off 2 against 2, and then sort of a load of other kids would arrive, and that would be increased to sort of like 5 against 5, 6 against 6, and so on, until in the end we had maybe 30 against 30 playing. Yes, I do remember the football at Bishop's Park, and honed my early game there, and now and again we'd play truant, yes. But football was important.
Exactly. It proved to be the right choice.
Right, and I can see the picture of Roy, but I can't remember him as a youngster. Oh dear, what a shame. I wonder what school you went to, Roy.
Yeah, well, send a message in, Roy, and I'll try and relay that to Malcolm. Terence Ross just wants to say, good evening, Stephen and Malcolm. Great to have you on. One of the best stories when I met you in a bar, you signed my England versus Cyprus program and ticket. You're an absolute true legend. Thanks very much, Malcolm. So that's nice.
It is nice, yes.
Neil Straker just wants to know if you keep in touch with anybody off the 3 legends. You keep in touch with Bernie, don't you?
I do, yes. Bernie and I were in contact on a regular basis. not really with Gatesy, although there is a possibility that I could be doing a bit of a podcast with tomorrow lunchtime with both Bernie and Gatesy, and possibly Mickey Horswell, who replaced Gatesy on the Legends. So I shall wait to see just whether I do get the chance to say hello to Gatesy, because we used to go out and sort of do a double act at talk-ins out in the social clubs and what have you, and they were good evenings, really good evenings. And but Gatesy had his own sort of way of doing things, and it just sort of altered the whole sort of magic altered at one stage. And so the people who were running Century Radio, they had to make a decision, and they made it. And Eric left, and then Mickey arrived.
Yeah, nothing stays the same forever. Ferry Hill Mag says, Malcolm, what's your greatest ever memory playing for Newcastle?
Oh boy, I was there 5 full seasons, and I have so many memories. But there is one thing that really does stick with me, and it was in my home debut. And the way the game went, because we were playing Liverpool, who were one of the top 3 sides in the country, along with Leeds and Arsenal at the time. And Emlyn Hughes scored first to make it 1-0. And then a lad called David Young, who played in our midfield that day, he was tripped by Kevin Keegan in the Liverpool penalty area, and the referee gave a penalty, so I stepped up and I slotted that one away, made it 1-1. And then a bit later in the first half, Terry Hibbett, who was making his home debut along with myself and I think Paddy Howard, and Terry Hibbett, he knocked a great ball through the inside left channel to me, and I got there just in front of Larry Lloyd, and Terry had that wonderful ability to draw the defender in, giving him the thought that he could get there first, and so thank you very much. And I whipped it off the toe of Larry Lloyd and went round him and smacked it into the far top corner, and it was quite a goal. And so I sort of ran off to the corner flag, and all the Newcastle players came over and were all congratulating me, and the crowd were roaring and cheering and clapping, and it was a great atmosphere. And then we stopped the celebration and turned and just started running back to the halfway line to get the game restarted. And the crowd stopped the cheering, and they all started to sing in unison. The hit musical in London at the time was Jesus Christ Superstar, and that title song, the Newcastle fans had changed the words, but it was sung to the same tune. And what it was Supermac, Superstar, how many goals have you scored so far? And I thought, how do 50,000 people all be able to sing new lines to a song, all knowing them? And I thought that was incredible. That was something absolutely magical. And I still don't know who it was who supplied the song sheets.
We might find out one of these days. Great answer, Malcolm.
Indeed.
Tom Dixon follows that up with, Malcolm, what was your favourite goal in your career? Doesn't have to be Newcastle.
Well, I'm always asked this question, and there's always one goal I go back to. And what I would say is that I once was watching Gary Player on television back in the 70s, in the late 70s, and he had been doing all the different clubs in his bag, and then he took out his driver, and he sort of showed the head of the driver to the camera, and he said, now, he said, the driver, he said, the hardest club to use in my bag. He said, I must have hit 10,000 shots with this club, and I've only hit one perfect one. And I could relate to that so much, because that was exactly how I had felt about my goal against Leicester. And what had happened was, Leicester had a corner. I went back to defend, and I think Paddy Howard he headed the corner down towards the edge of the box, and Irving Nattrass made a run, and he just got onto the ball and just kept running, and he was going through the inside right position out of the penalty area, heading towards the halfway line, and I just sprinted after him. And I would say I was about 12, 13 yards behind him, but where he was inside right position, I was dead centre, and just running straight between one goal and the other. Excuse me. And Irving, what I knew of Irving was that he was a great player in his own half, but he got a little bit nervous when he crossed the halfway line, and wasn't so sure of himself. And sure enough, and so I thought, when he does cross the halfway line, he's not going to want to stay on the ball. He's wanting to get rid of it. So I'm sprinting like mad, and he's crossed the halfway line. There was a Leicester midfield player who was sort of going across to try and stop the run of Irving, and Irving looked up, and I suppose he was about 8 yards into the Leicester half, and he just knocked the ball to his left towards the centre of the pitch, and I came steaming through, and it was one of those wonderful moments where ball and man came together in absolute perfect timing. And so, despite the fact that I was about 42 yards or even more away from goal, the pass was just so perfect to my run that I just pulled my left foot back and I went boof and let it go, and it just went like an exocet. And from my boot to the back of the net, which was almost 50 yards away, it only rose 5 feet, and it went in 5 feet high into the back of the net. The goalkeeper was at absolute full stretch, just couldn't get to it. And as Gary Player said, I've hit 10,000 shots, but only one in utter perfection, and that was it for me. Of all the games of football that I played, all the goals that I scored, that was the most perfect strike that I had in football. So that goal certainly stays with me.
Great stuff. Now we've got an interesting question, Malcolm. One of our favourite topics of conversation when we do our pre-match talkings. Joe Linton, John Ball asks, if you could have an hour with Joe Linton, what would you try to get over to him to help him?
Try scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd say to him. Try scoring goals. Do you not realise how important goals are? You have no good reason to have a number 9 on your back if you're not going all out to score goals. And I saw a most incredible quote of his and I had to check on this, and he did actually say it. I was able to speak with somebody who had witnessed it, a journalist, and Joe Linton had said goal scoring isn't that important to me. You can't be a centre forward. You can't be a forward if goal scoring isn't important to you. Goal scoring should be important to all 10 outfield players. And I was taught at Luton Football Club by Alex Stock how important goals are. Scoring at one end, stopping them from going in at the other, and where those goals can take you to. And Joe Linton just doesn't seem to be bothered. And I just wonder, in seeking to answer John's question here, if I were to go on a training ground with a big bag of balls, a goal and a goalkeeper, with Joe Linton, would he really want to learn anything? And I'm not so sure that he would. So if I had an hour with Joe Linton, I think after about 10 minutes I could send him to sleep, because I don't think he'd be interested in what I had to say, in what I could pass on to him. You know, that goal scoring, it's in the head. As much as it is in your left foot or your right foot or your forehead or whatever, it's actually in your head. It's a whole thinking process, and I used to go on a pitch, and in each half, what my target was to have 6 attempts at goal every half. Now, so that's 12 in a game. Now, some of them might have been almost non-existent, in as much that I might have had a shot and it was blocked by a defender, or it ballooned over the bar, or whatever. And it didn't matter. As long as I kept going at goal, sooner or later, boom, one would come off your boot and go flying into the corner. And the goals would come, but you've got to keep looking to batter the goal with shots. And so in 90 minutes of football, I had more shots in one game than Joe Linton has had all this season so far. You know, so if you look at it that way, he's got no desire. And if you don't have desire about something, you can't do it. You really can't do it. And what the people I would like to meet and sit down and maybe teach a thing or two is the people responsible for bringing him to Newcastle, because they really don't know their football, or there were other motives.
Somebody made a really good point yesterday, Malcolm, on yesterday's show, and it's a question I'm going to ask you before I throw it back to the fans, and that is the number 9 shirt, Malcolm, something that you wore with immense pride, and you know, worked game in, game out, and scored many a goal, and you know, entertained the supporters. And like you said, in one game, you know, had more chances than Joe Linton's had in a season. Should that shirt be given to somebody after they've earned it? It's a shirt that should be earned in my eyes. And I agreed with the supporter last night. Do you think that's the case? Because the shirt really has got so much history at our club, with the likes of yourself, Hughie Gallagher, Len White, Jackie Milburn, and of course Alan Shearer. Do you think that shirt should be earned? So someone comes in, they may well be a centre forward. It could be, you know, a big name, but should he be given the shirt automatically, or should he be made to earn it?
When Alan Shearer was bought from Blackburn by Newcastle United, there was no question, just give him the number 9 shirt. He had history at Blackburn and at Southampton, and you knew exactly what he was capable of and what he'd do at Newcastle, and he did it brilliantly and earned the shirt within a couple of minutes of his first game. But Joe Linton has come in, he's untried, he hasn't really got history. And so I think that there is a point when the number 9 or any particular shirt stroke number, when it has that kind of history, you can put it on a player's back and it can become an absolute weight. And so you have to be careful on how you hand it out, who you give it to. And so I think that there is a point to be made that it shouldn't be given to a player like Joe Linton. But he could be told of the history of it and say, right, now get out there and earn it. Let's see how much you want the number 9 on your back. And I don't think he'd be bothered. I don't think he'd worry whether he was in 999 or 999. It's neither here nor there to him. You know, he gives me the impression that he really doesn't have the desire for it. And well, I go back again to my time at Luton Town. In my first season, right from the very start, I was in the number 10 shirt. The guy who had history of scoring goals was in the number 9. He was older, way more experienced, and he wore the number 9, and I was in 10. But the manager, he gave everybody a target of goals that they had to look to get over the season. And he gave the older, experienced player a target of 18 goals to get in 46 matches. And then he looked at me, the next along the bench, and he said, McDonald, the new boy. And I'm rapidly thinking, right, if he gives the old senior player who's got good form, history, and what have you, if he gives him 18, I'm the sort of young, fresh legs in the side. He's going to give me 18, maybe 20. Can I get 20? Yes, and I'm sort of thinking, yeah, I can get 20 goals in 46 games. And Alex Stock, he just looked at me and he said, McDonald, the new boy, 30, and went straight on to talk to the 11. And I just sat there and I nudged the 9 under the ribs, and I said, Laurie, I said, did I hear him right? Did he just say 30? He said, oh, you heard him all right, boyo, and bloody good luck to you. and he just left it at that. And I thought, blimey, where am I going to get 30 goals from over the season? And it can either be a pressure, or it can be a valuable tool to get the very best out of yourself. And it was the latter that I found I was able to do. And I was able to get the very best out of myself. It focused me totally. When I came to Newcastle, and I had scored for Luton Town, I was there exactly 2 seasons, and I had scored a total of 61 goals. And having signed for Newcastle, as a few games went past, the coach, Keith Birkinshaw, he started to get onto me. You've got to defend more. You've got to defend more. I didn't ever hear him say, you've got to attack more. You've got to attack more. And so he was, as a player, was a centre half. And so he had a defensive mind to his coaching. Whereas I was completely the opposite. And that's what Alex Stocker taught me, that it's all about goal scoring. And it's not just when you're in the opposing penalty area. You've got to think goals, not just even when you're spending 90 minutes on the pitch. You have to think about it 24 hours every single day. You cannot take a solitary day off. It's got to be in your head all of the time. And you think and breathe goals and goal scoring. And Joe Linton, well, I think he just breathes air. He doesn't breathe goals.
Great stuff. Kevin Young says, Keith Downey from Sky Sports has just tweeted that Matty Longstaff has had talks with Udinese. Do you think he will go, Malcolm? And will this be the last incompetence from Mike Ashley?
I'm not so sure that it's Mike Ashley who can be blamed on this, but somebody has got to take the responsibility for why Matty Longstaff, when I was hearing great things about him last season, that, oh, this lad, he what a player he's going to be. And the club just did nothing. They didn't seek to engage him in talks, and I presume that he's got an agent. And as a lad, as a young footballer, he must be so disappointed that the club never took the steps to ensure his near future was going to be at Newcastle United. And I just find it incomprehensible that they're just allowing him to move on without having made a serious effort. And, you know, he's just earning an absolute tiny little fraction by comparison to the players that he's having to train and play with all the while. And I think it's dereliction of duty from the club. I wouldn't blame Mike Ashley. He is, as a chairman, it was never his decision, I'm sure. It's down to the football people within the club. They should have got this sorted out and nailed the lad's signature to a contract. And I think it's absolutely dreadful. If he goes to Udinese or wherever he goes to, I wish him all the very best of luck. I think he's a terrific player with huge prospects. And he and his brother Sean, they're two of the nicest fellas that I've ever met in football. They really are. They're an absolute joy to be in the company of. And of course, they're North Shield lads. And I'm president of North Shields Football Club. And they come regular. You know, when there's a game on at North Shields and Newcastle aren't playing, then quite often we've got both of the Longstaff lads in the crowd at North Shields. And I got to know them there, and they are smashing lads. It's a wonderful family, the Longstaffs.
Yeah, Winter Burns had asked a similar question. Gary Finnegan's got another point of view. He says, I don't see what people have seen in either of the Longstaffs. In his opinion, they're championship players. I mean, there is a train of thought on that, Malcolm, because they have had a bit of first team experience and they've held their own. There's been some impressive performances. You know, Matty obviously grabbing the winner against Manchester United this year, but you know, last season, prior to his injury, you know, Sean Longstaff had really, grabbed all the headlines. People were comparing him to a young Carrick. So, is there a train of thought, Malcolm? Do you think that they've proved themselves enough in the Premier League, or would is Matty Longstaff still got to do a little bit to prove that he's that kind of player? Do you think, or are you convinced that they're both capable of playing in the Premier League?
I think they're both capable of playing in the Premier League without any shadow of a doubt. I don't feel that Sean Longstaff has. I don't think that they've played the right people with him and played him in the right manner, and so I think it's been quite tough for him. He came in and was really doing well, but then he seemed to hit a wall, and he wasn't really getting much help from those around him in midfield. And I think that because it happens to all young players. When I was managing Fulham, I had a lot of kids come through, and what I discovered with them was that you could put them into the first team, and after 5 or 6 games, you would start to see the complete exhaustion in them, more mental than physical, but they were exhausted. Their eyes were blank. And so what I used to do was, having played 6 games, I would take them out, put them in the reserves, and say, don't be disappointed. You are learning all of the time, and do well in the reserves, and you're going to be back in the first team before you know it. And I found with 9 out of 10 of the youngsters that I did this with, that within 3 or 4 games, they were back to their best. They got out in the first team, and all of a sudden, there was an experience about them. They had changed from boys to men, and I felt that because you must ensure that you give them every support when they're out in the field. You've got to get the right players around them to play in the right way, and not look to make things difficult for youngsters. You've got to make it, as a manager, as a coach, as experienced players, all of those people have got to make it as simple as possible for a young player to go out and do the job that's necessary out in the field. And I don't think that either Sean Longstaff or Matty got the help that they should have done. And so, but I am absolutely appalled that Newcastle United have failed to get Matty Longstaff onto a long-term contract. I really am. I'm horrified and appalled.
It's a travesty. However, a takeover might see this change. It may be an easy win for the new owners coming in. We'll have to wait and see. We've only got about 20 minutes left, Mal. So James May says, Malcolm, I grew up with my dad telling many stories about how great you were. You were my dad's hero. A big thank you for the great memories and everything you have done for our club. Adam Young says, is Malcolm missing his walk and coffee at Ridley Park? So you're obviously missed Malcolm with this lockdown.
Yes, we're not getting the walks that we used to have. Billy is my dog. Oh, there's the picture of him. Mm-hmm. Or very similar to him anyway. Yeah, we're not getting out as we used to. And Ridley Park, there was a dog community that built up over some years, and we know the people who have got the cafe, and we were regular customers there, and it was a real good community, both humans and of dogs. So yes, I'm missing that very much. indeed.
Says, Malcolm, what are your views on the takeover? Do you think it will go through? And if so, are you excited?
I am excited, and I think it will go through. What everybody's got to remember, of course, is that in this current situation, the Premier League have got far more things to organise and think about than giving concern to Newcastle's takeover. So no word will be heard from them, and I think until clubs are back and playing, and everybody's getting into the swing of things. And I know there's been some controversy over it. There have been people protesting, but there have been too many Arab takeovers in the game for this one to be stopped. The precedents are numerous, and so it would be highly unfair to say no to the Newcastle takeover. And of course, I am excited because I think that where Newcastle United has been a mere subsidiary to the Mike Ashley empire and has helped to finance an awful lot of it, now it will be treated as its own unique football club and will be, I think, supported and given that opportunity to go and get success. And changes will happen, that's inevitable, but I think we're going to see vast improvements all around.
In the words of the late great Bill Shankly, Malcolm, it's going to be a bastion of invincibility.
Sorry, say again, Steve.
It's going to be a bastion of invincibility.
Wonderful. Yes. Oh, what a great man Bill Shankly was. Yeah, he really was. I could just stay in his company forever and a day. I really could. He was wonderful to listen to.
Peter Robson asks a question, Mal. We're just pushing for time, so I want to try and get through as many as we can. This is a good one for you. Should Steve Bruce be kept on? Would you trust him with £200 to £300 million to spend on transfers?
It's a very, very good and exceedingly difficult question to answer.
Jay gives this opinion. He says, I would trust Brucey to do my food shopping. Wouldn't trust Brucey to do my food shopping. Never mind give him 200 million to spend on players. There's not a lot of trust amongst the supporters, Mark.
No, I don't think there is. And if you look back at the managerial career of Steve Bruce, I don't think it would set hearts racing. But then if you would have mentioned the name Pochettino, then I think people would go, oh yeah, because Spurs, you could see what was really building there, and things happened behind the scenes which made life exceedingly difficult for Pochettino, and I think he was in the end rather pleased to get away from it all. But he will be absolutely refreshed and ready to go.
Do you not think pushing more to Rafa Benitez's return, Malcolm, because of his connections with Staveley and obviously he didn't want to leave in the first place. He was pushed out really by Ashley, and you know he left with unfinished business. Do you not think we're pushed more towards that? It's between Rafa and Pochettino, if you believe the bookmakers, and they're very rarely wrong.
Well, I had the greatest of respect and all the time in the world for Rafa, and what I would say is that I think he bases his game on defending. Pochettino bases his game on attack, and that is the difference for me, where I would say, yeah, give Pochettino an opportunity, and I think he really is raring to go, really. And I'm always very suspicious about the return of anybody in football, be it a player, a manager, a coach. It never works the second time around for me.
Okay, that's interesting. A lot of people are saying Andrew Kane. He says Rafa's the man for me. Paul Coombs, Rafa all day for me. I know over the course of the last few weeks, mind, it's been fairly split. I would say probably not an even split. Probably 70% of the fans in favour of Rafa and 30% for Pochettino. A lot pointing to the fact that Rafa's won things, but it'll be interesting to see. Mike Stewart goes, not a word of note has been spoken to the fans in recent weeks or months by Mike Ashley, which isn't unusual. What do you think about this? Now, there's obviously the outstanding issue of ticket money, Malcolm, because fans, as we know, are banned from the ground because of COVID-19. The season will be played out behind closed doors, and fans are still having money taken out of their account, yet the club haven't told the fans what is happening. And obviously we understand there's a takeover, ongoing, but for the club not to actually say anything about this money, is that right? Is it? We understand NDAs are signed about the takeover, but can they not communicate to the supporters? Can somebody not do that, or is that a sign that Mike Ashley has already left the building?
I think yes, the latter. I think that Mike Ashley, I think he's pretty much gone, and he's taken everything with him. He's taken the whole lot. So I think that it will be very difficult for fans to get full value for this season. But then it's going to be difficult for all clubs, all supporters, so I do feel sorry for the supporters, but I think that no matter what, they're not going to be treated all that well over this particular footballing disaster.
Yeah. Richard Boyd says, Supermac, which current player reminds you of yourself?
Nobody. Albeit, I'm a person who never makes comparison. I always just look at a player and judge him for what I see, and never making a comparison. Well, he's better than this, or he's worse than that. And I've never made a comparison with myself and others, not ever. I sort of looked at myself and counted my strengths. I have 5 strengths and 1 million weaknesses. So I just said, right, I'm going to make those strengths the absolute strongest, and just kept pushing them all the while. And I doubt that anybody has had those particular 5 strengths before, but then again, I don't think they have 1 million weaknesses.
Yeah. Simon Hopkins says, Malcolm, in your heyday, we were spoilt for centre forwards. Which of your contemporaries did you rate the highest as a goal scorer?
Only one, Jimmy Greaves.
Legend.
Oh, he was utterly incredible. When I was 14, my sports master at I was at a grammar school near Chelsea Football Club called Sloane Grammar, and it was just a small school, but it had a very strong footballing history, and I was happy to be there. And the sports master, when I was 14, he said, look, because you're the sort of one of the better players in each year, you've sort of been played centre half, you've played midfield, you've been playing up front. He said, I think you're going to be a centre forward. as you get older and bigger and mature. So he said, what I'd like you to do is on Tuesday night next, I want you to go to White Hart Lane, get yourself in there and watch for 90 minutes Jimmy Greaves. Don't take your eyes off him. Don't watch any part of the game other than what he's involved in. Just watch what he does. And it was a complete revelation to me that Greavesy, when everybody was stopping, he was going. When everybody was going, he would stop. And it was almost as if he was just doing the opposite of everybody else. And he touched the ball very seldom in the game. And the game finished, Spurs had won 2-0. Greaves had scored both of them. And all he did was just suddenly, he would go and he would be on the end of a pass and would just, with one touch, just smack it past the goalkeeper. Wonderful accuracy. But what it proved to me was that you can't necessarily be coached to score goals. It's an instinctive thing. And Greavesy had his own instinct. And I realized when I was 14 that I had to develop my instinct. And so that's why when you asked the previous question, I don't compare myself with anybody because I don't sense that instinct, that similar instinct in anybody. You know, the same as what Greavesy was. There's nobody else. Nobody else ever did anything in the way that he did it. So he can't be compared with.
It's a hard one. Yeah.
It is a hard one. But what I would say is that I played with Greavesy.
Yeah.
But not football. I played cricket with him. And and it was a lovely experience.
Mal, I want to say one more question in because we've only got about 3 minutes. What I will say about Greavesy, I watched a fantastic documentary with him about him on BT Sport, and I think what people tend to forget is there was life before the Premier League, and let's just say that Greavesy's goal scoring record in the top flight is the best, better than Shearer. You know, 300 plus goals, which is sensational.
Oh, incredible! Yes, well, Greavesy's record, yeah.
Yeah. Keith Rowe's going to get the last question. He says, Malcolm, you did well in your time as a manager at Fulham. Would you like to have been manager at Newcastle in the 80s or the early 90s? Would you have liked to have been in the dugout at St James's Park at some point?
I certainly would have been. Yes, I would have loved it. And I was close to getting the job. This was after my time at Fulham, and what I understand was the situation that I was up for the job with Laurie McMenemy, and the chairman at the time, Stan Seymour Jr., he said, right, I want the 6 directors in front of me to vote as to which one you wanted. And 3 voted for me, 3 voted for Laurie McMenemy. And Stan Seymour, when he realized it was a hung board, he said, right, he said, I now have the chairman's casting vote. And so I'm not going to go for either of these 2 because it would create too much argument in the boardroom. So I'm going to throw in a 3rd name, and I would like you all to vote unanimously for the person I'm putting forward. And he said, that person is Jack Charlton. and Jack Charlton got the job.
Right.
I would have loved to have managed Newcastle, yes, but it sadly wasn't to be. I got very close to it.
Malcolm, there's a lot of love and a lot of respect for you tonight. I'm really pleased we managed to get you on. Technology didn't get in your way. Even COVID didn't get in your way, which I'm delighted to hear. And I hope you and Carol are well. And we'd love to get you back on in a couple of weeks' time, Mal, because, as I say, we can do it now, which is great.
Absolutely. Oh, I had great pleasure in the hour we've spent together, Steve, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in on this, and all the lovely questions and super comments that have been coming in. I really do appreciate it, and I wish everybody that they stay well through this very difficult time, and stay sane as well. I know there's a few climbing the curtains, but we shall get there. And in a couple of weeks' time, Steve, I'll be delighted to join you again.
Great stuff, Malcolm. Okay, I will speak to you soon, Mal. Take care. Good night. God bless.
And good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Great to have Malcolm on. Fantastic. Tomorrow night, Bill Corcoran from the Food Bank. Absolutely great guy. He's got so much knowledge about Newcastle United. Very passionate guy about the Northeast as well. Really, really looking forward to having him on. And then we are back into the run of it. Thursday night, we'll have Michael Shopra. Friday night, the Geordie Dentist. And then Saturday afternoon, Lee Clark. I'm off to do Sky now, Sky News. I'm joining a live stream on Sky News between 8 and 9 to talk about COVID, something completely different. These shows will not be live next week. I will be pre-recording them and then sticking them up as a premiere. So you'll still get them at 6 o'clock. They'll just be, they won't be live, so you won't be able to join the comments. If you do want to join the show next week live, you'll have to come onto Instagram, follow Steve Wraith, and you'll be able to do it on there. But yeah, I'm continuing to do the shows, guys. Everyone seems to be enjoying them. Good night, God bless. See you tomorrow night. I wish you well.